The sky over the barren planet was a swirl of violet and crimson clouds, a strange reflection of the dying sun. In this alien world, jagged mountains rose like the teeth of some enormous beast, and rivers of molten rock traced patterns across the surface. Few beings dared tread here, for it was as beautiful as it was deadly. Yet tonight, the air trembled with a presence that was neither human nor wholly natural. From the shadows of the jagged cliffs, a shimmering ripple of energy passed, and the first dragon appeared. Its scales gleamed like polished metal under the fading light, deep green flecked with gold. Its eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the horizon, calculating, observing. Behind it, 3 more dragons emerged, each differing in color and size, but equally imposing. Their wings, vast and leathery, folded neatly along their backs, but the tremor of raw power in the air made it clear that they were more than mere creatures. They were forces of nature, beings shaped by evolution and something far beyond human understanding. They had come here not for conquest, nor for the hunt. They had come for help. The dragons had faced countless threats in their history, surviving wars that tore across continents and storms that reshaped entire lands. Yet the Zitherians were something different. These alien predators had arrived years ago, conquering planet after planet with terrifying efficiency. No matter how powerful the dragons were, no matter how clever their tactics, the Zitherians adapted faster. Every strike the dragons made was met with counterstrike, every defense circumvented. The dragons' numbers dwindled, their once proud lineage now teetering on the edge of extinction. After much debate, the dragons had decided to seek help from an unlikely source: humans. Humans were a species the dragons had watched from a distance for decades. They were fragile compared to dragons, lacking in raw power, wings, or elemental manipulation. They seemed weak, unprepared for the harsh universe. Yet in observing humans, the dragons had seen sparks of something extraordinary. Humans were unpredictable. They could adapt in ways the dragons could not, improvise when circumstances were impossible, and most intriguingly, they were fearless in the face of the unknown. This unpredictability, the dragons reasoned, could be the edge they needed to turn the war against the Zitherians. The dragons' destination was a small human research outpost built on the edge of a plateau. The outpost had been abandoned months ago by a larger settlement deemed too dangerous for human habitation. Only a handful of humans remained, conducting studies on the planet's unstable terrain and mineral compositions. Among them was Captain Elena Ward, a woman known for her sharp mind, courage, and unorthodox methods. She was exactly the kind of human the dragons hoped to encounter. As the dragons descended through the crimson sky, their massive forms casting shadows across the plateau, the humans below froze. Instruments beeped frantically, alarms blared, and the ground vibrated with the dragons landing. Elena, standing at the edge of a metal platform, blinked in disbelief. Her heart pounded, but there was no room for panic. She had seen strange things in her life, but nothing like this. The largest dragon, scales glinting like emerald fire, stepped forward. Its voice was not spoken, but projected directly into Elena's mind. The sound was both terrifying and beautiful, a resonance that carried weight and command. "We seek your assistance," the dragon said. Its words were clear, deliberate, and carried a hint of desperation. "The Zitherians will destroy our kind unless we find a way to fight them together. You, human, may hold the key." Elena's mind raced. She had read accounts of dragons in old legends, but she had never imagined meeting one in real life. And now one was speaking directly to her. She nodded slowly, keeping her fear in check. I will listen. But why us? Humans are not warriors of the stars. We are ordinary." The dragon's gaze softened slightly, as much as it could for a creature built of scales and power. "You are underestimated. That is precisely why we believe you can succeed where others cannot." You think differently. You adapt. You survive. And survival in the war to come will require more than brute strength. It will require intelligence, courage, and innovation, traits your kind possesses in abundance. Elena swallowed. This was overwhelming, but beneath her initial shock, a spark of curiosity and determination ignited. "If I help you," she said carefully, "what exactly do you expect from us?" The dragons circled slowly above her, wings folding and unfolding as they considered the question. "We offer knowledge, technology, and power," the dragon replied. "In return, we ask for strategy, courage, and cooperation. Together, we can confront the Zitherians. Alone, we will perish." Elena studied the dragons, noting every detail. The way their eyes shone with intelligence, the strength radiating from their massive bodies, and the silent command they carried over the air itself. She realized that these were not beasts of legend. They were sentient, thinking, and capable of reason. And yet, even these magnificent creatures, whose power could level mountains and boil seas, were desperate enough to seek help from humans. She made her decision. "I will help you," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "But you must understand, humans have limits. We are not dragons. We cannot fight like you. We must work together, each using the strengths the other lacks." The dragons appeared to consider her words. After a tense moment, the largest dragon inclined its massive head. "Then we begin." Over the following hours, the dragons and humans worked to establish communication and understanding. Telepathy bridged the gap between species, though it was not without difficulty. Thoughts moved differently for humans, constrained by the limits of brain and imagination, while dragons perceived the world through multiple dimensions of sensory input. Misunderstandings flared briefly, but Elena's patience and quick thinking smoothed the process. She taught the dragons to focus on human patterns of reasoning, while the dragons shared glimpses of their elemental powers, letting humans experience bursts of fire, wind, and energy manipulation on a minor scale. During this exchange, Elena learned of the Zitherians' threat in detail. The aliens were not mindless destroyers. They were highly intelligent, adaptable, and relentless. Every strategy the dragons had used against them had failed. Entire dragon colonies had been obliterated. The Zitherians sought a rare crystal unique to dragon territory, a mineral that fueled their advanced technology and made them nearly unstoppable. If the Zitherians succeeded, not only would the dragons be extinct, but human colonies across nearby systems would fall next. Elena's mind raced as she considered the stakes. The survival of an entire species, and perhaps many others, was on her shoulders. And yet, she felt no fear. She felt challenge, purpose, and a strange connection with these magnificent beings. As night fell over the plateau, the dragons settled, folding their massive wings around themselves in a display of cautious trust. Elena sat nearby, poring over maps and schematics, outlining potential strategies to slow or stop the Zitherians. They were building a fragile alliance, one founded on necessity, trust, and mutual respect. The air hummed with tension and promise. Above them, the stars burned bright in the violet sky, indifferent to the struggles of those below. Yet among the humans and dragons, a sense of unity began to take shape, a fragile but powerful force that might just turn the tide of a war that seemed hopeless. And far beyond the planet, deep in the void of space, the Zitherians moved closer, their fleet a dark shadow against the stars. They sensed change, though they could not understand it. They had never encountered humans allied with dragons before. They had never faced ingenuity tempered by courage. For the first time, the dragons and the humans felt hope. Elena glanced at the dragons, her mind alive with plans, possibilities, and questions yet to be answered. "We have much to do," she said aloud, though the dragons could hear her in thought. "And we must learn quickly, because when the Zitherians arrive, there will be no second chances." The dragons nodded. A slow, deliberate motion, and a low hum of agreement passed through the air. Somewhere deep within, they recognized that humans were unlike any creature they had known. Fragile, unpredictable, and daring in ways that defied logic, but perhaps, just perhaps, capable of saving them all. The night stretched on, filled with discussion, planning, and the unspoken understanding that something extraordinary was beginning. Humans and dragons, once separated by distance and perception, were now bound together by a common purpose. And neither side could yet imagine what would happen next. Above, the stars twinkled. Below, in the shadow of jagged cliffs, dragons and humans waited. One thing was certain. The universe was about to witness an alliance no one had expected, and the first chapter of a story that would change the course of countless worlds had already begun. The sun rose slowly over the jagged cliffs, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gold. The plateau where dragons and humans had gathered the night before was quiet now, yet the air carried tension like static electricity. Both sides had survived the night, but they knew this was only the beginning. The Zitherians were coming, and there was no time to waste. Captain Elena Ward moved among her small human team, a mixture of scientists, engineers, and soldiers. Their eyes, wide with both fear and excitement, followed her every move. "Listen carefully," she said, pointing to a holographic map of the surrounding region. "The dragon's territory is rich in resources, and the Zitherians want it. Their scouts are fast, and their ships are heavily armed. We cannot match them in raw power, but we can use intelligence, strategy, and the dragon's abilities to our advantage." A massive shadow fell across the platform, and one of the dragons landed nearby, wings folding with a powerful sweep that kicked up dust and small stones. Its scales shimmered in the sunlight, a mixture of silver and blue, and its eyes fixed on Elena. "We have observed your kind," the dragon said, its voice echoing in the humans' minds. "We see potential, but potential alone will not save us. You must act quickly and think beyond your usual limits." Elena nodded, understanding the weight of those words. She had spent years dealing with dangerous planets, hostile species, and impossible missions. Yet standing here, facing beings who could level mountains and burn forests with a single breath, she felt something new, a sense of urgency so great it pushed fear aside entirely. The humans and dragons began working together in earnest. The dragons shared their knowledge of the terrain, elemental abilities, and the Zitherians' patterns. Humans shared tactics, engineering skills, and ingenuity that dragons could not fathom. Bridges were constructed across chasms using dragon-controlled energy beams. Human sensors were placed strategically to detect Zitherian scouts. Small drones, guided by humans, flew alongside dragons to map the surrounding areas, creating a network of observation that would have been impossible for either species alone. During training sessions, Elena noticed something remarkable. The dragons were intelligent, yes, but they were rigid in some ways, bound by centuries of tradition and instinct. Humans, on the other hand, adapted quickly, tried new approaches without hesitation, and learned from mistakes in real time. The dragons began to see this too. They observed humans create traps that no dragon could have imagined and execute plans with precision, despite lacking the dragon's raw power. One morning, as the sun crested the mountains, a minor disturbance signaled the arrival of a Zitherian scouting party. Their ships, sleek and dark, cut through the sky with deadly intent. The dragons tensed, wings extending, elemental energy coiling around their claws and teeth. The humans prepared their sensors and defensive mechanisms, their hands steady despite the danger. "Stay calm," Elena said to her team. "Watch and learn. We are not here to destroy them yet. We are here to test our coordination." The Zitherians descended, their ships small but heavily armed. They scanned the plateau, detecting movement. The dragons roared, sending a shock wave through the air that forced the enemy ships to adjust course. Elena signaled her team, and humans activated the traps they had constructed overnight: hidden energy nets, pressure-sensitive explosives, and decoy signals that confused the Zitherian sensors. The dragons moved with precision, striking at points humans could not reach, while humans worked in tandem, disabling ships and guiding dragons to weak points. For the first time, humans and dragons fought side by side, each complementing the other's strengths. It was chaotic, dangerous, and exhilarating. The Zitherians were formidable, but the alliance held. The dragons realized the humans' ingenuity was not a weakness, but a force multiplier. Elena's quick thinking prevented disasters that even the dragons could not foresee. By the end of the encounter, the Zitherians were forced to retreat, their scouts destroyed or scattered, leaving the plateau in silence. The dragons roared in approval, not just for the victory, but for the humans' contribution. One of the younger dragons, a deep crimson with streaks of gold, approached Elena. "You're kind. You are different than we expected. Weakness does not define you. You innovate, adapt, and survive. Perhaps that is why the universe allows you to exist." Elena smiled faintly. "We do what we must," she replied, "and we learn quickly." The alliance began to deepen. Over the next few days, humans learned to harness small bursts of elemental energy, carefully guided by dragons, while dragons learned to strategize using human methods: reconnaissance, ambush tactics, and deceptive maneuvers. It was a slow process, full of trial and error, but trust grew with every shared success. One afternoon, while scouting the nearby valleys, Elena and a group of dragons discovered the remnants of a Zitherian raid. The land was scorched, trees burned to ash, and the ground was littered with debris. Yet scattered among the wreckage were signs of Zitherian engineering, small metallic devices capable of scanning and tracking movement. Elena's mind raced. These devices, if understood, could be repurposed to gain an advantage against the enemy. She called the dragons together. "We have an opportunity," she said. "We can turn their technology against them. But we must act carefully. One mistake, and we risk everything." The dragons listened intently. "We have always relied on strength," the silver-blue dragon said. "But you suggest using the enemy's tools. Your method is unusual, yet promising. We will follow your lead." Elena's team worked day and night, examining the Zitherian devices, learning their functions, and discovering their weaknesses. With dragons providing energy and humans providing engineering skill, they began to create defensive networks and traps that could mislead, capture, or destroy Zitherian forces. The process was exhausting. Mistakes were made, explosions occurred, and tempers flared. Yet every challenge was met with determination. Humans learned to respect the dragon's power, understanding that brute strength was not always the answer. Dragons learned to respect the humans' creativity, realizing that innovation and courage could turn the tide of battle more effectively than raw force alone. One evening, as the purple and gold light of sunset bathed the plateau, Elena stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the dragons soar above. She thought about the enormity of the task ahead. The Zitherians were still out there, more numerous and powerful than they had yet encountered. But for the first time, she felt a sense of confidence. They were not alone. They were a team, each side providing what the other lacked. Together, they had a chance. Suddenly, a distant tremor shook the ground. Elena's heart raced as she realized the Zitherians were testing them again. This time, the attack was not a scout. Ships appeared on the horizon, larger than before, with weapons capable of destroying entire hills. The dragons stirred, wings spreading wide, their eyes glowing with energy. Humans ran to their stations, checking sensors, preparing traps, and readying defensive mechanisms. Elena took a deep breath and spoke to the dragons in thought. "We are ready," she said. "Remember what we have learned. Trust each other and trust the plan. We survive together, or we do not survive at all." The dragons roared in acknowledgement, a sound that vibrated through the air and into the minds of all humans nearby. Then, with a burst of power, they took to the sky, forming a barrier of speed and fire between the Zitherians and the plateau. Humans followed, activating every device, trap, and sensor, their actions coordinated with the dragons' movements. The battle was intense. The Zitherians struck with precision, their weapons cutting through the air like silver lightning. Yet every time they thought they had an opening, humans and dragons responded, closing gaps, redirecting attacks, and exploiting weaknesses. Elena's strategies, once theoretical, were now tested in the chaos of real combat. And they worked. Amid the conflict, the dragons began to see something extraordinary. Humans were not only surviving, they were thriving. When faced with danger, humans did not panic. They adapted. They improvised. They found solutions where none seemed possible. Dragons, powerful and ancient as they were, had never witnessed this level of ingenuity in the heat of battle. One by one, the Zitherian ships were forced to retreat. The humans and dragons had won this encounter, but it was only a small battle in a much larger war. The alliance had been proven effective, but both sides understood the stakes. The Zitherians would not stop. They would return stronger, smarter, and more ruthless. That night, as the sky darkened and stars emerged like scattered diamonds, the dragons and humans gathered. Wounds were treated, repairs made, and plans reviewed. Elena addressed the group, her voice calm but resolute. "Today we survived, but tomorrow we must be ready to strike. We have proven that together we are stronger than either of us alone. The Zitherians will learn that humans and dragons are not to be underestimated." The dragons nodded, their eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "You have shown courage, ingenuity, and strength beyond what we imagined. We are honored to fight beside you." Elena felt a surge of pride. The humans were exhausted, battered, and fearful, yet they had faced creatures of legend and emerged victorious. The dragons had seen it, understood it, and respected it. For the first time, humans were not the weak, fragile species they had once seemed. They were heroes, partners, and indispensable allies in a war that spanned the stars. As the firelight flickered across the plateau, Elena looked at the dragons and whispered, almost to herself, "We've only just begun. But if we continue like this, if we truly fight together, maybe, just maybe, we can win this war." Above, the dragons spread their wings, circling the plateau, their energy crackling in the night air. Below, humans adjusted their sensors, fine-tuned their traps, and prepared for what was to come. And beyond the stars, the Zitherians watched, unaware that the greatest threat to their domination was not the dragons alone, nor the humans alone, but the extraordinary alliance that had just begun to take shape. For the first time, hope burned brighter than fear. And both dragons and humans knew that the universe was about to witness something it had never seen before. The dawn broke cold and pale over the jagged cliffs, casting long shadows across the plateau where humans and dragons had forged their uneasy alliance. The air was thick with tension. The events of the previous day had proven their combined strength, but also reminded them of the vast power of the Zitherians. Their enemies were adapting, learning, and they would return stronger. Captain Elena Ward stood at the edge of the cliff, staring toward the horizon. Her mind raced with possibilities and strategies. Every second mattered. Every decision could tip the balance between survival and annihilation. Behind her, the dragons stretched their wings, preparing for the inevitable. Their scales shimmered in the early light, glinting like molten metal, their eyes filled with both caution and curiosity. "They will come today," said one of the dragons, its deep voice resonating in Elena's mind. "We can sense them. Their fleet approaches with precision. This is no mere scouting mission." Elena nodded. "Then we fight smart, not just strong. Remember, we are a team now. Dragons, humans, we act together. We cover each other's weaknesses and exploit their blind spots." The humans hurried to their stations, placing sensors, adjusting traps, and reviewing their positions. The engineers checked drones, the soldiers armed weapons, and Elena moved among them, instilling calm and focus. Each person carried the weight of the coming battle, but also a sense of purpose that had been absent before. Suddenly, the horizon shifted as the Zetherian fleet appeared, a dark and menacing line cutting through the morning sky. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed than before, bristling with weapons designed to destroy both dragons and humans alike. A chill ran through the humans, but it was nothing compared to the energy radiating from the dragons. Their roars echoed across the plateau, a warning to their enemies and a signal of readiness to their allies. Elena signaled the humans. "Now," she said, "stick to the plan. Move with the dragons. Watch for openings." The dragons surged forward first, creating a barrier of wings and elemental energy. Fire, wind, and lightning combined with astonishing speed and precision. The Zytherians responded with a coordinated assault, their ships weaving in patterns that were both predictable and unpredictable. Humans acted in tandem, activating traps and using improvised devices to mislead the enemy. Drones guided dragons to weak points, while energy nets slowed advancing ships. Explosions rocked the plateau, sending debris into the air, yet the Alliance held its formation. As the battle unfolded, Elena noticed a pattern in the Zetherians' attack. They relied heavily on synchronized strikes and rigid formations. If disrupted, their attacks became chaotic and less effective. She quickly relayed this to the dragons, using thought projection. "Focus on their formation," she instructed. "Split them. Force them to react to unpredictable moves. That is where we gain the advantage." The dragons hesitated. They were accustomed to brute force, overwhelming power, and direct confrontation. Elena's strategy demanded precision, patience, and trust in the humans' ingenuity. Slowly, they followed her lead, adjusting their attacks to complement human interventions. The plan worked. Zetherian ships faltered, their coordination breaking under the combined pressure of dragons' elemental strikes and human-engineered traps. One by one, smaller ships were disabled, either destroyed or rendered inoperative. The humans moved swiftly, sabotaging energy sources and communication arrays on enemy ships, while the dragons exploited gaps in the Zetherians' defenses. However, the victory was not without cost. A young dragon, crimson with golden streaks, was struck by a focused blast from a Zetherian ship. It crashed onto the plateau, wounded but alive, its roar of pain echoing across the battlefield. Humans rushed to provide aid, using both skill and the limited elemental energy they had learned to stabilize the dragon. Elena felt a pang of fear but pushed it aside. They could not afford hesitation. "Keep moving," she shouted. "We are not done yet." The Zetherians, sensing their losses, adapted quickly. Their larger ships moved into position to bombard the plateau directly. The humans and dragons faced a moment of panic as powerful energy beams threatened to destroy their carefully constructed defenses. But Elena remained calm. She had anticipated this. "Dragons, create a diversion," she thought. "Humans, use the terrain to your advantage. Force them into the valleys. That is where we can trap them. The dragons surged forward, drawing the Zetherians' fire, while humans guided the remaining ships into narrow valleys where their movements were restricted. The terrain, combined with traps and ambush points, turned the battlefield into a deadly maze for the enemy. One by one, Zetherian ships were caught in explosive traps or immobilized by dragon-controlled elemental strikes. Elena's heart pounded as she moved through the battlefield, coordinating attacks and ensuring both humans and dragons acted in sync. Every moment was critical. Every misstep could mean disaster. Yet she saw something extraordinary. Humans adapting mid-battle, creating new traps on the fly, improvising solutions that even the dragons had never considered. The dragons began to understand something they had not before. Humans were fragile, yes, but their minds were powerful. They could see patterns, anticipate moves, and react in ways dragons could not. It was not strength alone that won battles, but the combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The Zetherians were relentless, but the Alliance's coordination began to overwhelm them. Elena noticed a vulnerability in the Zetherians' command ships, a flaw in their energy shield synchronization. She relayed this to the dragons. "Target the central command ship," she instructed. "We strike together, humans and dragons. Timing is everything." The dragons roared in agreement. With precise coordination, they struck. Fire, wind, and lightning combined with human-engineered devices to breach the shield. Elena's team guided explosive drones into weak points, disabling critical systems. The command ship faltered, and the remaining Zetherian fleet hesitated, unsure how to respond. Victory seemed within reach, yet the battle took an unexpected turn. Reinforcements arrived, faster and larger than anticipated. A new fleet, shimmering with a strange blue energy, cut through the sky, threatening to undo all their hard work. The dragons tensed, recognizing a challenge unlike any they had faced before. Humans scrambled, adjusting traps and defenses, but the sudden appearance of reinforcements created chaos. Elena felt the weight of the situation. They had faced the Zetherians before, but never with reinforcements arriving mid-battle. She knew that brute force alone could not win this fight. They needed strategy, ingenuity, and the human factor more than ever. "Dragons, humans, listen to me," she projected through thought and voice. "We split into two groups. One distracts and contains the reinforcements. The other strikes at the central command ship. Precision, timing, and trust. This is our only chance." The dragons hesitated, but Elena's calm determination gave them courage. They had learned to trust her judgment, even when it defied instinct. Slowly, they divided, dragons and humans coordinating to create a dual-front assault. The battle escalated into chaos and brilliance. Dragons tore through the sky, drawing fire and controlling energy, while humans maneuvered through terrain and traps, striking at weak points with precision. Elena guided her team expertly, exploiting flaws and anticipating enemy moves. The Zetherians, though powerful, were unprepared for the ingenuity and unpredictability of humans working in perfect coordination with dragons. During the chaos, one young engineer, a human named Thomas, discovered a way to disable multiple enemy ships at once, using a combination of dragon energy and human technology. Elena gave the order. With a pulse of elemental energy amplified through human devices, the reinforcements were neutralized in a brilliant display of coordination and skill. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke and debris filled the air. The Zetherians had retreated, their fleet in disarray, leaving dragons and humans standing victorious, though exhausted and wounded. Dragons roared in celebration, their eyes shining with newfound respect. "Humans," one said, its voice resonating like a drum, "your courage, ingenuity, and adaptability have changed the course of this battle. You are not weak. You are a force beyond what we imagined." Elena felt a mix of pride and relief. The humans were battered, some injured, but they had fought alongside dragons and held their own. They were no longer the fragile species the universe had underestimated. They were heroes, indispensable allies, and partners in a war that spanned the stars. As night fell, the Alliance gathered to tend wounds, repair equipment, and reflect on the battle. Elena addressed both humans and dragons. "Today we survived, and we showed what we can do together. But the war is far from over. The Zytherians will return stronger, smarter, and more ruthless. We have learned, adapted, and proven ourselves, but we must continue to grow. Together, we can win this war. Alone, we cannot." The dragons, their massive bodies silhouetted against the stars, nodded in agreement. "Your kind has shown a brilliance we did not expect. You have become a true partner in this fight. Together we will challenge the Zytherians and reclaim what is ours." Elena looked at the stars, thinking of the battles to come. She knew the Zytherians would not rest. They were adaptive, ruthless, and relentless. Yet for the first time she felt hope burning brighter than fear. Humans and dragons working together were more than just survivors. They were a force capable of changing the fate of worlds. The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversation, planning, and the unspoken bond that had formed between species. Humans had proven themselves, dragons had learned to trust in creativity and ingenuity, and the universe had yet to witness the full potential of this alliance. Somewhere far beyond the planet, the Zytherians regrouped, unaware of the true strength they had just faced. They would return, but the humans and dragons were ready. Their strategy, courage, and unity had turned the tide. And when the next battle came, the humans, once underestimated, would play a decisive role. Elena stood with the dragons, feeling the pulse of their power and the weight of responsibility. "We are ready," she whispered. "And when they return, we will show them what humans and dragons together can do." Above, stars twinkled in the dark sky, silent witnesses to the beginning of a story that would shake the galaxy. Below, dragons and humans rested, knowing that the universe was changing and that the next chapter of their fight had already begun. The dawn was cold and sharp, the sun barely peeking over jagged cliffs that stretched like teeth into the sky. The plateau where humans and dragons had formed their alliance was alive with preparation. Every breath, every motion carried the weight of anticipation. The Zytherians were coming, not scouts, not reinforcements, but their full force. Their fleet shimmered on the horizon, a black wave of ships bristling with weapons and energy shields. The humans and dragons stood together, not in fear, but in resolute readiness. Captain Elena Ward surveyed the scene, her sharp eyes taking in the positions of humans and dragons alike. Soldiers checked weapons, engineers monitored sensors, and dragons flexed massive wings, elemental energy coiling along claws and teeth. Every being present knew the stakes. Victory meant survival. Failure meant annihilation. Yet, unlike before, there was no panic. There was only a sense of purpose, a unity born from shared struggle and mutual respect. The largest dragon, silver and blue, stepped forward. Its eyes, ancient and wise, focused on Elena. "Human," it said, its voice echoing in thought. "We face our greatest challenge yet. The Zytherians have grown stronger, more dangerous, but together we have learned to see beyond strength. Will you lead this final strike?" Elena nodded. "We do this together, humans and dragons as one. We strike smart, strike fast, and never hesitate. Timing and trust will be our weapons." The dragons roared in acknowledgement, a sound that vibrated across the plateau and into the hearts of all humans present. Then, with a sweep of enormous wings, they launched into the sky, forming a shield of power, speed, and elemental energy. Humans followed, coordinating their movements with precision, activating traps, drones, and devices that had been prepared meticulously over days of planning. The Zitherian fleet advanced, their ships glinting under the rising sun. Energy beams cut through the air, striking the plateau with destructive force. Dragons responded immediately, channeling elemental power to intercept and deflect the attacks. Fire licked across the sky, lightning danced in arcs, and gusts of wind swept away debris. Humans maneuvered through chaos, guiding drones, activating traps, and creating diversions to protect vulnerable allies. Elena moved swiftly, her mind calculating possibilities and contingencies at a speed unmatched by any individual human or dragon. She spotted patterns in the Zitherian formation, weaknesses the enemy had not anticipated. They relied on rigid coordination, overconfidence, and the assumption that dragons alone were their only threat. Elena intended to prove them wrong. "Dragons," she projected in thought. "We split the fleet, create two fronts. Humans will strike where they least expect. We force chaos, and then we hit their command ship directly. Timing is everything." The dragons hesitated briefly, instinct fighting against unfamiliar strategy, but they trusted Elena. In a coordinated surge, the dragons divided. One group engaging directly with the enemy, while the other drew fire and created openings. Humans moved with precision, slipping through gaps, activating hidden devices, and striking critical points on the enemy ships. The battle raged with intensity that seemed to shake the very planet. Energy beams collided with elemental shields, creating blinding flashes. Explosions rocked the air as traps were triggered, sending Zitherian ships spinning or crashing into the terrain. Yet, even amidst the chaos, humans and dragons maintained coordination, their combined effort weaving a tapestry of destruction that the Zitherians could not anticipate. Elena focused on the central command ship. This vessel coordinated the fleet, its destruction vital to victory. She guided dragons and humans alike, instructing precise strikes to weaken shields and create pathways for human operatives. Small groups of humans, carrying devices designed to disrupt energy systems, maneuvered through openings created by the dragon's attacks. One young human, Thomas, led a group of engineers onto a damaged but accessible Zitherian ship. The dragons provided cover, their elemental strikes deflecting fire and disabling weapons. Thomas's hands moved with speed and precision, inserting devices into critical systems. The ship shuddered as circuits overloaded, shields faltering. It was a delicate operation. One mistake could trigger a catastrophic explosion. Back on the plateau, Elena coordinated the remaining forces. "Dragons, hold them in place. Humans, continue the strike on their weak points. Focus on timing. Strike together. Strike once." The Zitherians sensed the disruption, but could not adapt quickly enough. Their formation faltered, their attacks became chaotic, and gaps appeared in their defenses. Elena seized the moment, directing the dragons to converge on the command ship. Fire and lightning combined with wind and coordinated human devices, creating a perfect storm of destruction aimed at the central vessel. The command ship shuddered and faltered under the combined assault. Its shields flickered, energy beams misfiring. Elena gave the final signal. The humans executed a precise strike, activating a chain of devices that disabled core systems and left the ship vulnerable. A massive explosion erupted, sending shockwaves across the battlefield and signaling the Zitherians' defeat. The remaining enemy ships, leaderless and disorganized, attempted retreat. But humans and dragons were relentless. Drones guided dragons to pursue, elemental strikes incapacitating fleeing ships, while humans disabled engines and communication arrays. Within hours, the Zitherian fleet had been scattered, broken, and forced into a full retreat from the region. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke and debris filled the air, but the humans and dragons remained standing, victorious, yet exhausted. Wounds were treated, repairs made, and for the first time, both species allowed themselves to fully absorb what had been achieved. The dragons roared in unison, a sound of triumph and respect. "Humans," the silver-blue dragon spoke, its voice deep and resonant. "You have proven yourselves beyond what we imagined. Your courage, ingenuity, and adaptability have turned the tide. We underestimated you once. Never again." Elena felt a surge of pride. The humans had fought not just for survival, but for a future. They had stood beside dragons, creatures of legend and raw power, and had been decisive in victory. They were no longer fragile observers in the galaxy. They were equals, heroes, and indispensable allies. The dragons gathered, their massive wings folding in a display of solemn respect. "We offer you a gift," said the largest dragon, "knowledge, technology, and the wisdom of our kind. You have earned a place among the guardians of this galaxy. Together, we will rebuild, protect, and ensure that no threat rises unchallenged again." Elena nodded. "We accept, and we will honor this trust. Humans and dragons, together, will safeguard the future. Today we fought as one, and tomorrow we continue as one." The alliance began to take shape beyond the battlefield. Humans were taught the secrets of dragons' elemental manipulation, understanding not just the mechanics, but the principles of energy, balance, and strategy. Dragons learned the value of human ingenuity, of creative problem-solving that defied instinct and convention. Over the following days, the plateau transformed from a battlefield into a hub of collaboration. Humans constructed advanced devices and traps, guided by dragons' energy manipulation. Dragons refined their combat strategies, incorporating lessons from human tactics. The two species moved as one, sharing knowledge, culture, and mutual respect. Elena walked among them, observing the progress. She saw humans who had once doubted their ability now experimenting with controlled bursts of elemental energy. She saw dragons laughing, a sound that resonated in thought rather than voice, as they marveled at the humans' clever solutions to complex problems. The bond had become more than alliance. It was friendship, trust, and a shared understanding that together they could face any threat. At night, the dragons soared above the plateau, their wings reflecting starlight. Humans watched from below, feeling both awe and kinship. The galaxy had once seemed vast and indifferent, full of danger and uncertainty. Now it felt full of possibility, hope, and the promise of extraordinary cooperation. In the distance, remnants of the Zetherian fleet moved, silent and defeated, nursing their losses. They would return, but the humans and dragons were ready. The alliance had proven that intelligence, courage, and creativity could overcome raw power. The Zetherians had underestimated humans, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Elena stood at the edge of a cliff, feeling the cool wind and the energy of dragons around her. She reflected on how far they had come, from fragile humans underestimated by both dragons and the universe, to heroes and partners in a galactic struggle. She thought of the battles ahead, the challenges yet unseen, and smiled. "We've only just begun," she whispered to herself. "But together, there is nothing we cannot face." The dragons circled overhead, their eyes glowing with intelligence and respect. They had found allies where none were expected, and in humans, they had discovered a force beyond reckoning. Above, stars twinkled, silent witnesses to a story that would echo across galaxies. Below, humans and dragons stood united, ready to face whatever challenges the universe would throw at them. Together, they had changed the course of their world, and perhaps of countless others. The dawn gave way to day, the battlefield now a place of planning, rebuilding, and preparing for a future that had once seemed impossible. The Zetherians had been defeated for now, but the bond forged between humans and dragons would endure, a testament to courage, intelligence, and the extraordinary power of collaboration. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other civilizations took note. The universe had learned that when humans and dragons stand together, no force, not even one as formidable as the Zitherians, could easily claim dominance. The alliance had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Elena watched the dragons soar into the sky, feeling a profound sense of connection and purpose. She knew the battles ahead would test them again, but now they had a secret weapon no enemy could anticipate: humans. Resourceful, courageous, and brilliant humans who had turned the tide of war not through raw strength, but through determination, innovation, and an unwavering will to survive. The story of that day, the alliance and the victory, would become legend, not just among humans, but among dragons and other civilizations alike. A lesson that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most terrifying power. As the sun rose higher, Elena and the dragons prepared for the next chapter, knowing that whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together, stronger than ever.